Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 350. Your weekly little get-together, we talk about recent gaming news. I'm as always your host, Stephen Brown, and tonight we have to ask if Diablo 4 will be on Game Pass or not. We gotta talk about the fact that the STALKER devs are getting blackmailed by some bag of dicks online, and is there a PlayStation 5 Pro on the way? All that and more in just a moment, but first I want to remind everyone here that this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching us live here at Twitch TV /GamePoints, or later at over a myriad of video hosting platforms, be it Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, etc., feel free to join in the conversation with any questions, comments, and concerns that you might have. Just try to keep them germane to the conversation. And of course, if you like what you see here, you know what every streamer wants when it comes to likes, follows, subs, all that good stuff. All right, moving on to our very first story here. And I want to talk about Diablo 4 just a little bit because there's more to it than just Diablo 4 that I want to get into. What you're seeing right now here is Rod Ferguson. Rod Ferguson is the general manager of Diablo over at Blizzard there, if you want to get a look at his bona fides there. And the reason why I'm talking about will they, won't they when it comes to Diablo and Game Pass is because it's more than just that for the industry. As many of you know, Activision and Microsoft have been in talks to get merged into one company, with Microsoft buying out Activision and Blizzard and King and all that. Meanwhile, Sony's been very desperate to stop them. The rest of the games industry seems to be totally fine with the deal going through. It's specifically Sony that are hanging things up. But of course, being the culture that we live in, sides have broken out amongst the fandom, with people on the Xbox side and people on the Sony side lobbing bombs at each other over whether or not one big business ends up buying another. And all of them, of course, have their reasons. For the record, I tend to lean toward being fine with the acquisition. Not because I want to see yet more companies get gobbled up by a few bigger publishers, but because Activision Blizzard clearly wants to sell. And if it's not Microsoft that buys them, the only other people out there that can do it are Tencent. And we definitely don't want that. From a pure financial standpoint, as far as I'm concerned, I have Game Pass, and them putting Blizzard games and Activision games on Game Pass would be a boon. That'd be less I'm spending every year if I want to play any of the bigger titles from those companies when they come out. So that makes this statement right here, which people are kind of parading around the internet, a little bit more contentious than it normally would be. And there's actually nothing Rod Ferguson's saying here. The tweet itself says the following: "It's awesome seeing the excitement around Diablo 4 beta and our Wolfpack puppy. We've been getting some questions about D4 on Game Pass, and I want to let you know that we have no plans for that. See you in Sanctuary during the beta early access weekend starting March 17th. Now, some people are taking this and running with it as if it's a statement of fact that Diablo 4 is not coming to Game Pass. Suck it, Microsoft bros. It said nothing of the sort. It didn't say it was coming to Game Pass, and it didn't say it was not coming to Game Pass. It just said there are no talks about it coming to Game Pass. I promise you, well, I shouldn't say promise. I lean toward the belief that when this deal does go through, and I do believe it will go through, then you will start seeing the Activision games popping up on Game Pass. And if it wasn't for the haranguing of Sony delaying the merger happening, rightly or wrongly, you can argue that all you want to. I will say it's a bit telling when Jim Ryan came out and alluded to the fact that he doesn't necessarily want Call of Duty as much as he doesn't want the deal to go through. I think that it is in their best interests not to mention any benefits of Game Pass for months ahead until the deal gets finalized. Once the deal gets finalized, you're going to see them talking about bringing all kinds of shit to Game Pass. And the reason why is because both Microsoft and Sony have a vested interest in looking as weak as humanly possible. Microsoft wants to look exceedingly weak, so that way they go up to regulators and go, look, mean old Sony's making fun of us, and we need Blizzard and Activision and Call of Duty. We have no exclusives, like a whiny little bitch. Meanwhile, Sony's going around saying, oh, Call of Duty is the biggest thing out there, and we have nothing that can stand up to Call of Duty, despite the fact that we have so many games in our catalog that are bestsellers every year. Woe is me if they take Call of Duty. Like a little bitch. At the end of the day, it's two megacorps who we should feel no sympathy for on either side, actively lying about their position in the market to try to convince a government to okay or kibosh the deal. Microsoft is goddamn Microsoft. They can be just fine without Call of Duty. Xbox itself is a revenue blip when it comes to how much money Microsoft itself pumps through. So this idea that Microsoft at a whole is in trouble if they don't get Activision Blizzard is laughable. Meanwhile, Sony is the dominant console platform between the two. Hands down. Not even close. And every year they talk about how their games are best selling on PlayStation compared to Xbox. In fact, you can even see it in the numbers. You don't even need to bring the numbers up. Just know that Sony tells you what they are. Microsoft does not tell you what they are. And one of the most important truisms in business is if something is good, a business will not shut up about it. If something is bad, they won't say a goddamn word about it. Which is why you haven't heard anything from these two companies when it comes to their upcoming games. It's not like Microsoft nor Sony have nothing planned for the next year. They're just trying to stay quiet about all of it because they are trying to out-victim the other side. And it is fucking pathetic to watch. Which brings us back to this topic here about Diablo 4 and GamePass. It's coming. There's no way it's not. He did not say it will never be on Game Pass. He said there are no plans for it because there are no plans for it. Because right now they're trying to hammer out the deal to get acquired by them. You don't go around counting your chickens before they hatch. And in this case, you don't say, oh yeah, Diablo 4 will be on Game Pass and then have the deal somehow tank. So don't take this as a statement of it's never coming to Game Pass. Also, don't take this as a statement as it is coming to Game Pass. It is just Rod Ferguson saying nothing other than go take a look at the beta, because regardless if Activision Blizzard gets bought or not, they still want Diablo 4 to sell. So keep that in mind when you see executives talking. Go through what they say with a fine-tooth comb and be extremely nitpicky about the details. Because far more often than what they say, it's what they don't say that is important. Moving on to the next story here. This sucks. I hate this. This is from the Stalker team here. The Stalker is making the Shadow of Chernobyl, the Stalker 2 Shadow. What the hell is Stalker 2 called? Is it just called Stalker 2? Shadow of Chernobyl, I think, was the subtitle of the first one. It's been a long time since I played this game. But this dev team, GSC World rather, was based in Ukraine. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, a lot of horrible shit going on in Ukraine. There's a war between them and Russia, which actually ties into what we're going to talk about right here. The Stalker devs over at GSC Game World posted the following on Twitter recently. Recently, our employees' account for a collective work with images application was hacked. The responsibility for this was claimed by a community from the Russian social network. They are threatening to use obtained data for blackmail and intimidation. This is not the first attempt to hack and leak our data, including personal information. We have been enduring constant cyber attacks for more than a year now, for the aforementioned reason I was saying. We have faced blackmail, acts of aggression, hacks, attempts to hurt players, fans, and even efforts to damage the development process and reputation of our company. We are a Ukrainian company, and like most Ukrainians, we have experienced many things that are much more terrifying: destroyed homes, ruined lives, and the deaths of our loved ones. Attempts to blackmail or intimidate us are completely futile. Essentially, they're saying we're watching our friends and family get blown away. Blackmail is on the bottom of the list of problems we got going on right now. Back to the article. Our unwavering commitment to supporting our community remains unchanged. We will continue to do everything possible to support Ukraine, and this won't change in the future under any circumstances. Despite attempts to break us, we remain strong and courageous, because when you believe in something and love it with all of your heart, you have to defend it at all costs. We have been through a lot, however. These challenges only encourage us to work even harder, because we believe that the truth is on our side. Evil will never win. In the event of any leaks, we ask that you refrain from watching or distributing information about Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl. It is Heart of Chernobyl, not Shadow of Chernobyl. That's what it is. Outdated and work-in-progress materials may dilute the impression of the final idea that I put into the game. We encourage you to stay patient and wait for the official release for the best experience possible. We believe that you will love it. We'd like to express our deepest appreciation for our lower community. We are overwhelmed by the response and support we have received from you. Thank you for that. Each and every member of the GSC Game World team. Our mission is to commit all of our strength and passion to complete the project and deliver it to you, despite all the obstacles in the way. Your support is our inspiration. Glory to Ukraine. Ending with the bit of the patriotic statement there. The fighting in Ukraine has been going on for over a year now. There are many Ukrainian developers out there that have been directly affected by this. In fact, a former developer for GSC Game World, a fellow by the name of Vladimir Yezov, known by Fresh Online, was killed during the defense of Bakhmut. So they know people that are dying and being injured and hurt and displaced and having their lives ruined. And I don't mean because they were canceled online. I mean because their fucking home was leveled. Or their father was shot and killed. And to get hacked by allegedly someone who was so upset they got knocked out of their Discord server that they decided to do this is beyond the goddamn pale. GSC Game World actually was based in Kiev before the Russian invasion, and when it kicked off, they partially relocated to the Czech Republic, but not entirely. There's still a lot of developers, from what I understand, I could be wrong on that, please correct me if I am, that are actively in Ukraine right now, working on Stalker 2 here. And some little douche online got pissed off that he was banned from Discord because one of the demands, from what I read, and keep in mind it was a translated document, so there could be something lost in translation here, was that they wanted to be readmitted back to the Discord group. Get fucked, dude. Get out of here with that nonsense. Best of love goes out to the Stalker devs. You already have so much on your plate to have to deal with some little overprivileged dick on top of it all. I'm sorry that's happening to you guys, and I hope that you are staying safe first and foremost. I am sure that your passion toward developing the game and your fans are eagerly looking forward to Stalker 2, but please, for the love of God, take care of you and your families first before anything else. So stay safe out there, and hopefully we'll get to see this game in an excellent shape soon enough. Or not. Take your time with it. We don't need to have it soon. Moving on. This here is from Insider Gaming. Now, the link to this and every story we talk about will be posted down below in the description or over on our Discord server. You can join that clicking the link down below. Once again, from Insider Gaming, they are saying, not just asking, but definitively stating that a PlayStation 5 Pro is in development and could release as late 2024, or as early as late 2024. A little bit backwards there. Insider Gaming sources have confirmed that the PlayStation 5 Pro is in development and could release with a tentative release date of late 2024. Keep in mind that might not be the actual name of the thing when it finally comes out. I wouldn't be surprised if they stuck to that naming convention, but they can go with like PS5 Plus or any number of things. I don't know. I say State of Pro, but they could change it. Anyways, back to the article. Insider Gaming previously reported that a new PlayStation 5 with detachable disk drive is scheduled to release later this year. It's understood that this new model will phase out the current PlayStation 5 to cut down on production and shipping costs. In spite of widespread reports, this is not the PlayStation 5 Pro model. This is just the beginning of new hardware coming to PlayStation users this generation, said one source when talking about the detachable disc console. As for what PlayStation 5 specs would entail, details are limited. However, a recently published patent by PlayStation architect Mark Cerny suggests that Sony Interactive is looking to accelerate ray tracing performance in video games. 100% believe this because whenever they release a pro version of the console, not only are they able to make it marginally better, selling it to people who already bought a PlayStation 5 again, because there are people who will buy whatever the most powerful thing is out there, even if it's only a small incremental step beyond what they have. But it also is an excuse for them to whittle out components that add to the cost. Over time, things get smaller, easier to make, cheaper to produce. So you could always have a PlayStation 5 that's, say, a couple kilograms less, maybe a half an inch smaller in width or height. And over the course of building a million of these consoles, you're saving hundreds of millions of dollars. So this incremental step up is here to stay for Sony. It's been very successful for them with both the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3. PS3 had a Pro system, I believe. It's been a while since I've turned that goddamn thing on. But it was definitely successful with PS4 Pro. Shockingly so. I was actually surprised when how much they count. No, PlayStation 3 I don't think had a Pro. What they had was like 10 different SKUs of different disk drives. And that's what it was. And then they took it backwards compatibility later for all the reasons I mentioned. It's cheaper, easier to produce. You're able to crank them out faster. More than giving the consumer a more powerful system, Sony is more interested in just getting more profitability and profit margin on each console sold. That's why these pros are released. That said, could be cool. Take a look at it. I do think that the jump between the PlayStation 4 and the PS4 Pro was pretty nice in some cases. Not all. Not every game took advantage of that, but some of them did to great effect. And I would imagine something very similar here, where it's a marginal increase to almost a negligible increase in most games, but one or two of them will really pop. That's what I think would happen here. Either way, don't expect a PlayStation 5 Pro until late 2024 at the earliest. Maybe even a little bit later if the situation, if the global pending economic global crash doesn't happen, or China invades Taiwan, or the Ukrainian war starts to spiral out of control. All of that will, of course, delay that. As far as the PlayStation 6 goes, looking like we're setting for 2028 at the latest, on at least 2028 rather on that, which would put it in line with Nintendo and Microsoft's console plans, alleged console plans, I should say. As far as the rest of it, well, who the hell knows? We just know it's on the way. What's going to be in it? I don't know. Accelerate ray tracing is the only thing we seem to know, and that comes from some rando document found by some rando online. Onion 00048, if you want to go take a look at that. I think it's inevitable. Will it happen next year? Probably. My gut tells me it'll probably get announced late 2024, released 2025. That is what my gut is telling me, because the PlayStation 5 is still relatively new. I know it's been out a couple years at this point, but it's also we never really have had the glut of exclusives yet for this system. Most of what's been developed for the PlayStation 5 and for the Xbox Series S and X have been cross-gen games. And my opinion on cross-gen games is as such. They're not PlayStation 5 games. They're PlayStation 4 games that are ported up to PlayStation 5. This idea that they can really take full power of whatever system they're playing on is laughable, because you have to, by necessity, design them for the lowest common denominator. And we have yet to really see any huge exclusives that are only for current generation systems being pumped out, because no one was really buying these consoles until recently. They're selling well. That's not to say the PlayStation 5 isn't selling well, but it wasn't selling as well as it could be, and people were still buying PlayStation 4s too. So there's no point in completely shifting away from a console that's still selling to a new console that's selling well but could be selling better, at least as far as Sony is concerned. Microsoft numbers, hard to say because we don't get them. See previous conversation about what happens when the company does not tell you what a number is. So yes, PlayStation 5, very likely on the way. Don't expect it for another couple years. Next story here is going to be from Video Game Chronicle. Square Enix says Forspoken launch sales were lackluster, backing up a story we talked about last week about how Luminous Productions, the studio that made Forspoken, has essentially been reabsorbed back into Square Enix. To the article here from Video Game Chronicle. Speaking during a financial results briefing on February 3rd, of which an English transcript was just now published, Square Enix president Yosuke Matsuda said that sales of the game have been lackluster following challenging reviews. He ended up saying the following. However, the game has received positive feedback on its action features, including parkour and combat capabilities, so it has yielded results that will lead to improvement of our development capabilities in other games in the future. That said, its sales have been lackluster, and while the performance of the new titles of February and March release dates will be the ultimate determinant, we see considerable down risk to our financial year 2023 third quarter earnings. they're essentially saying that we're not making a sequel to this. What we learned from that game will be applied to other games, and it was so bad that they're seeing downside risk on their platform. The game's performance was enough to single-handedly screw that quarter for Square Enix. Not good. And of course, a month after Forspoken's release, it was announced that developer Luminous Productions will be fully merged into Square Enix this May. It's not good. It didn't even break even. If you were to probably look into this, there was someone recently who on their LinkedIn profile said that they worked. They were the lead writer or one of the lead writers to Forspoken, and they said the game had over $100 million budget. They said worked on Forspoken, parentheses, game with $100 million budget plus. So probably not 150. They probably would have said 150 as that case. So I would estimate that Forspoken had between $100 million and $150 million plus budget. That's not counting marketing, by the way. When a game, when the publisher and developer talk about budget for the game, they don't count marketing in that number. There is no way in hell that game made any of its money back. Didn't even make its development costs back. Because for every $100 million spent in development, you can expect an equal amount spent in budget marketing. Especially if it's a big AAA title like Forspoken was geared up to be. And they had commercials for this thing playing all over the place. One of the few times I remember seeing a video game commercial over the past few months outside of like Harry Potter or the generic PlayStation 5 ad with Horizon on it. That's real bad. And Square Enix is going to be eating a huge loss on that. Moving on, we have a couple of delays I want to talk about here real quick. This is via Eurogamer. Starfield delayed till September. Direct showcase scheduled for June. It is as it says. For the longest time, they have been teasing those people at Bethesda that Starfield will come out in the first half of this year. That is no longer the case, and it's going to be launching September 6th. Now, it was initially due to be released in last November, but in May of last year, Bethesda announced it was going to be delay the game's launch into the first half of 2023 to ensure players receive the best, most polished version. Now, the rumors are further delay continues on the internet. Bethesda has confirmed Starfield will now arrive second half of 2023 on September 6th. This does put it up against Baldur's Gate 3, which is a game that I love. I'm really looking forward to fully coming out, but not really Starfield level of AAA-ness. And Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2. Sony's Spider-Man 2, I might add. Which means that if the Activision Blizzard deal does go through with Microsoft, you will have Sony putting up arguably its biggest release this year. I do expect Spider-Man to somewhere in God of War Ragnarok, by the way. Up against what is clearly Microsoft's biggest release this year, arguably only released this year. And God help Bethesda if Starfield is not excellent. It cannot just be a good game at this point. It must be an excellent game. It must be an iconic game, a venerable game, one that we look back upon fondly, especially considering that Bethesda Game Studios' reputation is nowhere near what it once was. And one of the reasons why I think this is getting delayed is because it's rumored, that this game is only running at 30 frames per second. And a lot of this is speculation. It goes to what people were seeing on their little demo they showed a few months back. It goes to Todd Howard's conversation with Lex Freeman on his podcast. Fascinating, by the way. I'd recommend taking a look at that. Where he has said that 60 frames per second wasn't all that important. And if you don't have a technical marvel to compare to Spider-Man 2, which, yes, they are completely different games. I understand that. One is a sprawling open world RPG. The other one is significantly more contained onto the island of New York. From what we know, they could actually go beyond New York in Spider-Man 2. But the scale and scope of these two games is vastly different. There's no arguing about that. But at the end of the day, you're going to have people looking at video from one game, looking at video from another game, and still comparing them because they're both essentially exclusive to their respective consoles. The comparisons are going to be made, especially if they release within a few weeks of each other. Starfield cannot afford to be only good. It must be, I am loath to say perfect, but perfect. This is their last chance when it comes to the consumer goodwill. And considering that the Elder Scrolls 6 is, what, minimum 5 years away? You can't have Fallout 76 again. You can't even have Fallout 4 again, which was a fine game. I'd say even good, but not great. And it needs to be great at minimum. So this is going to be a very interesting pair up here to see how these two games shake out. Once again, I understand, not the same game. I understand that the completely different genres, and I'm not looking necessarily at sales figures to stack up against each other. What I am concerned about is what my focus on here is. YouTuber A shows video of Spider-Man and compares it to video of Starfield. If one of them looks vastly superior to the other, you and I know the difference. Sure, we're wonks when it comes to video games. We know we understand that these are two fundamentally different things. Most people don't. And it's not going to work out well for them if it looks jank. It cannot have that Bethesda jank. We are done with it. We are far less forgiving of it than we used to be. And they need to... And also, they really can't delay this goddamn thing anymore either. They're in a rock and a hard place. It's time for them to shit or get off the pot now. And that is not a position you want to be in, especially when you really only get one shot at a first impression. Other games delayed, speaking of first impressions. This here via Bloomberg, Warner Brothers delays Suicide Squad game again to add more polish. They are pushing it from a May release date to later this year, according to a person with direct knowledge of the matter. Keeping in mind, I don't believe Warner Brothers has officially delayed this game yet, but everyone is kind of saying they have at this point. Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, a multiplayer shooting game starring a group of comic book anti-heroes, originally planned for a release in 2022 until it slipped to 2023 early last year. Last fall, London-based developer Rocksteady Studios said it would be out May 26. The new release date was not that clear. There's not enough time, by the way, for those of you who might be cheering this game getting delayed after it's having its gameplay debut a few weeks back, and it was just chock full of weird live servicey elements and not capturing the Arkham vibe very well. Reception to the actual gameplay seemed tepid at best because people know Anthem when they see it. People know Avengers when they see it. People know Battleborn when they see it. And I'll even Steelman it a little bit. People know Borderlands when they see it. And I don't mean in the art style, but I mean in like the idea of the gear score and the asinine level of weapon drops and everything being tied to a specific level based on this one little bit of gear that drops that increments you slightly up there. Destiny 2 being another example of this. And it really felt like what people want from Suicide Squad is not Destiny 2. What they want is an Arkham that's probably a little bit more action-oriented. So for those of you out there who are cheering at this delay, thinking those elements are going to get purged from the game, they're not. Not enough time to fundamentally make gameplay changes like that. What this can do, however, is that my guess is while they can't remove the games of the service stuff, it needs to be perfect to once again use that term in every other way. That means it is going to be chock full of stuff you hate, but hopefully with the extra time, it runs bug-free, no glitches. Maybe even pad the game out a little bit by taking content that you were going to section off in a first season and just put it into the game itself to make it feel like there's more content there. That's the kind of changes I expect happening with what's going on here, is that they're padding the game out, they're filling it up, and they realize they have to fucking nail it. Even more damning is a report from Giant Bomb's Jeff Grum, who said that a reliable source told him that Rocksteady's game may not even arrive until next year. I think we all know why Sefton Hill left the company. I am highly concerned about Suicide Squad. Every time I hear something new about this game, my hype for it dies a little bit more. Or even like basic press releases now are just anti-hype for it for me. This game could be late till 2030 for all I care at this point. I just have zero desire to see it anymore. I got one more story here that I found kind of interesting because rarely do I get to use these people as a source. The FBI. The FBI issued this public service announcement, essentially warning people, hey, there are fake games out there that's meant to scam you out of cryptocurrency. I'm not going into details here because it's full of boring stuff, but all you need to know is if you're playing a video game and it has any cryptocurrency stuff added on top of it, and it's talking about real world money, be cautious. Don't be an idiot. Don't let your kids take your credit card and buy a bunch of what's a shit coin that I can think of, like Tether or something like that. Even with Bitcoin, don't trust people online with it because they're there to scam you and they will scam you. Don't be an idiot. There is no such thing as free money. So if you're playing your Farmville clone or whatever it may be on Steam or mobile phones, this probably relates more to mobile games, and they keep having you pump in more and more real world money, saying you have a promise of pulling that money out, just be very, very cautious. I would even try just avoid the entire thing in general. Be aware that those scams are on the rise. Don't be an idiot. Don't get suckered in at the promise of money. We have many delays out this week as we wrap things up here. I'm also about to sneeze. Thank you. Delays. We have the following. Suicide Squad and Starfield, both talked about earlier, so I won't get back into them. We also have System Shock, the remake itself, getting delayed again. It's now dated for May 30th. It was originally supposed to be, I believe, end of sometime in April. So it's about a month and a half to 2 month delay. You also have RoboCop Rogue City getting delayed. They showed a new trailer of some gameplay. Looks a little bit jank, but honestly, we expect that much because it's from the same people that made that excellent Terminator game. Not a budget game by any means, but one that had heart. Looking forward to this doing the same. It was supposed to be dropping out earlier this year in a June 2023, earlier in the year, June 2023. And now it has been pushed to September with a nebulous date, so it could even be pushed back more. And that does it for delays, which does it for the show itself. This has been GamePoints episode 215. Thank you for showing up. If you like what you saw here, you know what to do. Like, spits, follow, subs, shares, all that good stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at CapitalistPig21. There's a Discord you can join down there, which will give you links to all the stories that we talked about. I recommend you read them on your own as well. And I do stream throughout here at twitch.tv/GamePoints throughout the week. Come on by, hang out, see what I'm playing. I'll be back next week at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here at twitch.tv/GamePoints. Until then, y'all stay safe, take care, and I'm out of here.